Today in Locked On Red Wings, they lost.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley, and I am a podcast producer, for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast. Well, Scotty is a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, as well as the host of Locked On Tigers, and I am upset for a multitude of reasons. I think primarily is I'm recording this episode at 1 a.m, and the Red Wings didn't even have the decency of winning that hockey game.
Yeah. 1 a.m. recordings after losses really vibes aren't very high. I'll admit that. Morale is low.
Yeah, not great. I mean, for what it's worth, I struggle to even say this, Scotty, when talking about this 3-2 loss in overtime to the Anaheim Ducks. Obviously, if you want to look at silver linings, they got a point in this game, and baby steps were taken in your performance. We talk about, and we're critical of their 5-on-5 play. At 5-on-5, you played very even with the Anaheim Ducks through 3 periods. Last half of that third period, I feel like the wheels kind of came off and the Ducks kind of took over at 5-on-5.
Yeah, outshot in regulation.
None of that matters. None of those baby steps or silver linings matter, because at the end of the day, this is one of the worst teams you're going to face all season long. They
still don't have a regulation win.
They still don't have a regulation win.
It's almost Thanksgiving. They do not have a regulation win.
I don't take any solace in the fact that they got a point in this game. I mean, this was the game that the Red Wings could have used to snap their 3-game losing streak. Now, instead, it's a 4-game losing streak. And Scotty, I don't know where you want to begin in terms of the cons for this game. We have cons, we have pros. There are pros from this game, namely like Jonatan Berggren, but I feel like when losses happen, I feel like we have to talk about why the loss happened before we can get to the lighter notes, because, I mean, they did lose the game, So I don't know where you want to begin. I'll let you kind of pave the way.
I want to begin with something you said there, which was I view playing even 5-on-5 with the Ducks as a con. I don't view that as a pro. That's not a good thing. You should be dominating the Ducks on 5-on-5. And I'm not trying to make this sound like, one of the worst teams in the history of the NHL or anything like that, but this is a team that you are comfortably better than, and comfortably more talented than, and comfortably deeper than in your forward groups. And even for as much as we've talked about the struggles of this defensive unit, the Ducks is worse, I promise. It's a train wreck over there. Okay. So this is a game that, we finally played even with someone on 5-on-5, but because of the opponent, that almost feels gross to call a pro. That's a con. You should have outplayed them 5-on-5, and it shouldn't have been. Again, I think it was only by 1 shot, but you got outshot in regulation by the Ducks. That's not a good thing, and even though it's close, which is been rare lately, that's not a pro. I don't know. It's like we said, we're both tired and morale is low, and we're both crabby. But golly, man, that was a frustrating game.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I missed the first period of this hockey game, admittedly so, because I had my own hockey game to go to, which we also lost 3-2. It was a bad omen to begin with. Not in overtime, though. And, of course, I got off the ice. I'm like, of course, I missed Jonatan Berggren's first NHL goal. Don't worry, guys. I saw it, though. I did see the replay. But I texted you, and I'm like, so what have I missed in the first 20 minutes? You go, they've played them very tight. And honestly, that's frustrating. And I knew immediately what you were talking about, and I don't want to make light of the Anaheim Ducks. I know they are one of the worst teams in the league, and they will be throughout this year, but you're still playing an NHL team. And any given night, you're capable of losing.
The point I was trying to make was I'm not trying to make this sound like one of the worst teams ever or anything. They might not even finish with the worst record in hockey. But they're certainly in that. If you were to make a tier list, they would be in the last tier. There would be no tier below whatever tier the Ducks are in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you barely outplayed them if you did at all at 5-on-5, depending on the period. It was a different story. Of course,
Yeah.
again, it was very tight every single step of the way. Penalties killed you again. I think I said, I didn't say it on the episode yet, but right before I counted it, they had 5 or 6 penalties again in this game, three of which came in the third period that canceled out crucial power play opportunities the Red Wings had to extend their own lead.
He went from a power play to a 5-on-3 in like 40 seconds.
And 2 of those were stick infractions. And that's the biggest thing too, is you can't be taking the worst kind of penalty you can take. The L penalty, like there are times where taking a penalty is a good idea, because you're breaking up a play that could have been super dangerous and would have been a guaranteed goal. You prevented a goal. Now the team just has to play defense for 2 minutes. But stick infractions are the laziest penalties you can take, because it means you're not moving your feet. And you lost 2 power plays due to stick infractions. And another one, you ended up on 1 power play going down to a 4-on-3, then 5-on-3, and you killed that. Because of a roughing on top of it, which there was a debate about embellishment. That's not the point. The point here is the same problems persist, and it's getting you blown out in games against teams like the New York Rangers, and it's making you lose close battles against bad teams like the Anaheim Ducks. And unless they can figure out a way to correct the course, this season's not going to be even as good as we thought it was going to be. Not that we thought that this team was going to be a playoff team. I keep reiterating that because I want to hammer home, I want everyone's expectations to be realistic for what this team is. But I mean, you're going to fall short of the expectations we did have if you can't figure out this. We talk about scoring off the rush and scoring power play goals like they had in today's game. They had a power play goal in this game. It was great. Berggren's first. We'll talk about that. But that's not a consistent way to win hockey games. That's complementary to a solid 5-on-5 game. That's how you build success. And if you can't establish a 5-on-5 culture, you're not going to win hockey games. And I don't care where you are at in the rebuild. You have to play good at 5-on-5. You have to establish zone presence. And we've talked about it. We beat this horse dead. I mean, it's just
Friday.
Friday. Not quite yet, but it's just, it's getting exhausting. And I know we're crabby because it's 1 a.m. We just watched this team blow another lead in third period, which is another thing we got to talk about. Is third period collapses. It's just it gets exhausting after a while. You keep waiting for the other shoe to drop and the team to flip the switch on their 5-on-5 play and for it to click. And it just hasn't clicked yet.
Yeah, I hold out some hope that it's still like it's before Thanksgiving and with a new coach and presumably a new system. And we've seen a little bit of a new system implemented that as the season goes on, that, there's a chance that as players get more and more comfortable and confident with the new system and it starts getting easier to implement and whatnot, players get healthy and stuff. Like there's certainly things that as the season goes on, they can improve on, and I think they will improve on. But I think every game I become more and more convinced that this team is going to be wildly inconsistent.
Yeah.
And that's like the big thing that every single game I become more and more confident in that take. And it's something where they're not going to be terrible. And like, we've never said they're going to be a playoff team. So like, that's off the table as well. They're going to be, after the season ends, they're going to have a point total that's relatively competent. You're going to look at and go like, oh, a step forward was taken, or, oh, this division is super tough. And, we hung around or whatnot. But when you do what fans do, as I'm sure most of our listeners and watchers do, and as we do, obviously, as part of our job, like watching them every game, when you will see on a game-to-game basis that this team will beat teams that they shouldn't win and that are way better than them some nights, and they will also lose to teams like the Anaheim Ducks and the Chicago Blackhawks, which they've already done both of those things already before Thanksgiving. So like, I think that's what this season is going to be. I think the point total will be a respectable, not a like disaster where people are like, oh my goodness, this point total sucks and this season was a failure. I don't think that, but I think when at the end of the season, when you dissect it game by game, you're just going to see, okay, the next step for this team is getting some level of consistency, because we stole some points from teams that we shouldn't have stolen points from, and we dropped points from teams that we shouldn't have dropped points from.
I agree with literally everything you just said. I think that is going to be the biggest issue this team is going to have. And I mean, there's still a couple more things I want to talk about. I don't want to make this whole episode dreary and dour, but I mean, that's just reality. I mean, it's dreary and dour because the team lost to one of the two worst teams in hockey. So we'll continue the conversation on the other side of this. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Built Bar. If you guys aren't eating Built Bars yet, you got to. They're great. You got to try them. Talking about Built Bar's new reimagined flavors, cookie dough topper, a coconut brownie bar, and coconut brownie topper. There's also white chocolate peppermint granola. It's Built's take on the granola bar, so it's more filling and still insanely tasty. And candy cane brownie puff. Built Puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud, which is true. The cookie dough chunk puff is legit.
Fact, yeah.
That's fact. That's not even subjective. That's objective.
No, that's objective. Yeah.
First off, for anyone who hasn't tried Built Bars before, they're literally the best tasting protein bars ever built, which again, I can back up with my own personal experiences with Built Bars. I've gone through a lot of different types of protein bars over the year. Back when I, was actually into the gym and went 5 days a week. I'm lucky to go 3 days a week now. But back when I was trying to get swole, I tried a lot of different Built protein bars, man. And Built is the only one that ever consistently had good flavor. A lot of them are chalky, but that's not a problem with Built, especially if you go with the puff. I always highly recommend people go to the puff. They're revolutionizing nutrition as we know it with 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and shockingly low sugar and calories. Just 130 of them. Just sink your teeth into that first bite and it'll change your life forever. Built. You got to try this. Get 15% off your order right now by using code LOCKEDON15 at built.com. Again, that's code LOCKEDON15 at built.com. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty and I are sobbing and literally stomping our feet at the loss of the Detroit Red Wings to the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, when we're talking about other things, let's talk about something that's kind of a pro and kind of a con in this game. I actually thought the defense played extraordinarily well, and you lump Ville Husso in there as well. Let me. Whenever I say defense, I don't always mean the defense. I do mean the defense in this game, but I'm talking about the team's defense as a whole. They blocked a lot of shots. They shut down a lot of plays. Ville Husso made a lot of fantastic saves. He was great in this game.
For both teams, Ducks included, like us, both teams were really good at putting sticks in the lane.
Dude,
like
Gibson
that was something that
too.
Like both teams did all game at like an incredible level. I was like, what is happening? No one can complete a pass. Like every lane had a stick or two in it. It was very impressive by both sides. And yes, the Wings certainly did that very well too.
Yeah, I mean, the team, they both stopped a lot of quality scoring chances for both teams. Obviously, teams had scoring chances still, but I thought especially down the stretch for the longest period of time, I mean, the Red Wings, like I said, took those bad penalties, canceling out power plays, leading the penalty kills. They killed those off. It was very impressive. Now, granted, the Anaheim Ducks power play is the 31st in the league, and they did get a power play goal in this game. But I thought in their own zone, they prevented scoring opportunities very well. My issue with the team's defense more has to do with the transition out of their own zone and the stoppage of zone entries. I noticed this happened a lot. When the Red Wings would begin to try and enter the opponent's zone, the Ducks would attack them as soon as they got the blue line, forcing them either to curl back and regroup or dump and chase. When the Ducks went to enter the Red Wings blue line, across the Red Wings blue line, there was none of that. They always had a clean zone entry, skated right through, and established zone presence or got a chance off the rush. That's one of my problems with this defense is they're not challenging at the blue line. They're letting the opposing team just skate in and establish presence, which may be an overarching problem that I just haven't noticed until tonight as why this team gets outplayed at 5-on-5 more times than not. And then the other issue I had too was on breakouts, the defense would get the puck. And I mean, the defenseman this time, the defenseman would get the puck, look up ice to their wingers or their centers, make the pass to the open winger and center, and the open winger or center is not ready for the puck or not expecting the puck, and it would end up being a turnover at the blue line. That's not on the defense. That's on the forwards for not expecting the puck. Always have your head up looking for a pass. That's where my problem comes in the defensive zone as to why huge things that stood out to me.
Yeah, I think that's something that we talked about right when the season first started, when they got off to a few wins, right, to start off the year. Something that we really highlighted was, especially I remember opening night specifically, we talked about the forecheck and how good that it was and how good that it looked, and that they were like the forwards were playing aggressive defense and such. And in the last 4 games, that's completely gone away. And like that's like you said, that could be a underlying problem that they need to take more of a look at as a whole. Or again, I mean, could be an inconsistency thing just with the like ebbs and flow of the game. Like it leads to certain styles. I don't know, but it's definitely something that early in the season, especially again, like with I know Zadina's hurt, but like he was a pretty solid defensive forward, and like we had brought in Kopp, and like early on in the year, that was something that we noticed and we're like, hey, this might actually be pretty decent, and it has not been.
No, absolutely. It's just, I don't want to beat a dead horse, man. We know what this team's problems are. We know what they have to address to fix it. And, you know, we're not NHL head coaches, and nor should I be, because I'm not nearly that smart to be one.
I believe in you.
But it's all on Derek Lalonde to figure this thing out and, you know, implement his system as he sees fit and try to get this team to get it to click. I mean, the issues are obvious, and he's been very forthright with what the problems are on this hockey team. But
everyone's aware of the 5-on-5 play.
You can,
like,
I mean, you can
everyone.
only say, I know what the problem is so many times before, you know, it's like, okay, we'll fix it. And again,
it's like the Dan Campbell thing.
We're 16 games. Yeah. We're 16 games in the season, his first year as an NHL head coach. I don't want to be overly critical yet. I don't. No,
we're not at a point where it's like, is Lalonde's system failing? Like, no, we're certainly nowhere close to that conversation yet. But
I'm just tired of losing.
It's right. We're tired of losing, and it's. Like
and I'm not talking about this
1:20 in the morning, but I think that like for real though, like no one is screaming about how like Lalonde's system and style is terrible and is, you know, like is never going to work or anything like that. But all you can ask for this early on in his tenure and this early on in this season is adjustments from a game-to-game basis. And that is not something that, at least in the last 4 games, that we have really seen too much of. There have been ebbs and flows. Like, again, we were even on 5-on-5 today, which we haven't been in weeks. But, again, that was against one of the worst teams in the NHL. I'm not really sure. Maybe they played the same level of 5-on-5 that they usually play, but it was against the Ducks. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really know.
I mean,
all we can ask for right now is adjustments from a game-to-game basis, and that's, I think, all people really want to see.
And in all fairness, like, we have seen some improvements. The loss to the LA Kings was a close-fought battle. Obviously, the Red Wings gave up a couple power play goals that put them down early in the second period. But they battled hard in the third period, which historically this season, like this game, have been pretty dismal for them. But their defense looked a lot better. They kept shot counts low in that game, not so low in this game, but they have made adjustments and taken little steps forward. You could see that in this game as well. But the little steps forward don't mean as much when they come against an opponent that is not expected to be much of anything. So there, you can see those adjustments, you can see those improvements, but I just want to see it result in a win. And I know that could be, I don't know if you could consider that a selfish opinion, because I know what this team is. So it's selfish of me to both say, you know, I expect this team to miss the playoffs, and at the same time, I expect this team to win. That guess like that could be considered a selfish take.
Well, beating the Ducks doesn't make you a playoff team.
Yeah, true, good point. But it's like I just said, man, I'm just tired of losing. And I know realistically, I know logically, again, there's no excuse for losing to the Ducks, but I know realistically, I know logically, what this team is. But when I sit down on the couch and I watch this game as a fan, I can't help but just root for this team to win. And after a 3-game winning streak, now you got a 4-game losing streak. And that just feels very reminiscent of what we saw last year. And I'm not trying to like sound the alarms on anything yet, but I was just hoping we were past this point. And it doesn't feel like we're quite there yet. I think there'll be improvements this year, but it doesn't feel as if that we're past that point yet. And I was hoping we would be, and I felt like we needed to be.
Yeah, I'm hoping that no part of this season is reminiscent of the second half of last season. And that's, I think, that would be a good step in the right direction for me personally, I think. But no, I agree. I think good teams are consistent, and that's something we talk about all the time on this show. And we talked about it all off season, and we talked about it leading up to the season. We've talked about it so far in the regular season. Like, good teams are consistent on a night in and night out basis, and they don't win every game, but they're in every game and to beat teams they're supposed to beat. And this team has shown very little, if any, consistency through the first month of the season.
Absolutely. When we come back, we're going to talk about the positives that were in this hockey game, namely, and mostly overshadowed by the loss, was Jonatan Berggren's first NHL goal and Michael Rasmussen playing out of his freaking mind.
Yeah, he was great.
He had a great game. We'll talk about that when we come back on Locked On Red Wings. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, let's talk first and foremost when talking about the positives. Jonatan Berggren got his first NHL goal in this one. Came on the power play, which, first of all, I love the fact that this kid is getting power play minutes in his third NHL game. Yeah. I believe he actually got it early minutes on the power play earlier than that, but it just speaks to how much faith this organization already has in his skill set that he's getting power play minutes as a rookie in his third NHL game. He's looked good.
He's looked good. I mean, he's looked good at 5-on-5. He certainly looked, he didn't look like an odd man out. He looked like he belonged on the power play unit, I thought, in this game and so far in, the first 3-4 games of his career. Yeah, no, he's looked good. He's looked good. And this was kind of a wonky, like, weird goal, off a dude's face and, like, rebounded off to, perfect position to shoot. And he took care of business and drove it home and whatnot. But, yeah, I mean, regardless of how quirky and weird of a play it was, it's still, he doesn't look out of place out there. He is very clearly like a high IQ, like, playmaking, like, plays happen when this puck is on his stick. And you can tell that as he gains more and more confidence and just continues to grow and get better in certain areas in the NHL, like he's only just going to become more and more of a playmaker. You can really tell his style of play already.
It's a shame that this team lost in the fashion that they lost and who they lost to, because I feel like we're not giving this goal the proper aplomb that we would for other rookies when they score their first NHL goals. I mean, remember when we came on here after Soderblom, who plays in the IR today, fantastic, scored his first NHL goal. We were freaking out, and we normally would for Berggren's, but alas, the Red Wings had to just
sour a little bit. Also,
all over
for
us.
Sure.
That's not
for sure. Also, like the Soderblom, I mean, like that was, I don't know, wasn't that opening night?
It was. There was also a lot of
opening night, his first NHL game, obviously. Like, I don't know, he's a unicorn. I don't know. I feel like that's maybe a little different situation, but fair enough. And he deserves a ton of credit. And like I said, he has looked like he's belonged so far in every game he's played in. He hasn't really been noticeably like struggling, or you're like, oh my goodness, that's such a rookie move or anything like that. Like he's looked solid out there so far. So props for sure.
Well, and on that deflected goal too, I mean, it came to him off a deflected shot, and a lot of guys, and I said this about the Pew Suter play a couple games ago, but a lot of guys would immediately shoot that puck as soon as it comes to him. It came to him and he waited not long. Waited like a half a second, but he got that puck and he looked for the best shooting opportunity that he had, and he made the most of it. And that patience is, I'm not trying to say that his first NHL goal is going to steer the course of his entire career, but it was a legitimate veteran-esque goal in the way that he showed that just split-second patience to make sure he had an opening and not just fire it as soon as it got to his stick. That's impressive.
Absolutely.
Rasmussen was probably
dude. So, like, if you want to talk about like silver linings or like, oh, well, you need to pick one positive in this game, Michael Rasmussen is the correct answer.
Yeah.
He looked unreal. Like, beginning to end, first period, he made a couple of crazy plays. First period, he drove through the lane, like deked his way around, like bully balled his way through the lane as well, and then found, I think it was Sundqvist. Really beautiful setup, and Sundqvist just couldn't bury it home. I'm pretty sure it was Sundqvist. But he did that in the first period, and then obviously his goal was insane. Like, just an insane display of strength added to like stick handling and puck protection. Yeah, he looked unbelievable in this one.
The timing
and that whole line was great. When he's the center on that
good.
line, and it was the most productive line. So
wait, I'm sorry. What position is he playing on that line?
Right. Yeah, 3C, baby.
Okay. All right. If he keeps this up, listen, man. If we were getting like to the halfway point of the season and he's still playing as well as he's playing, I'm about to go into the receipts of the Locked On Red Wings podcast.
Brian's going to take a victory lap on air.
I've been a staunch Rasmussen defender since last season. It's got back a while saying like, give this guy some time. Like, not everyone develops.
Why don't we set it to like New Year's Day? Why don't we give you like a month and a half? And we can start off the new year. If he's still playing at this level, we'll start off the new year with you taking a victory lap.
I don't know if I'll actually go through the effort of going through the Locked On Red Wings archives, but
no, I didn't mean to do that. I just meant like talk about how much of a success story he's been. Yeah, I didn't think that part was serious.
He's not turning into like some elite player, but he's turned into a bona fide defensive forward that can use his body and his size to protect the puck and create plays in the offensive zone. And it
was an incredible goal. Like, seriously, it cannot be stressed enough how impressive that entire, like the setup, the play itself, going behind the net and coming back out. And using the body like that is so impressive. That was an unbelievably impressive goal.
Bertuzzi and Woolman. Also, no fanfare for Woolman coming back. I want to point out. We heard yesterday Bertuzzi was coming back, and maybe it wasn't like they weren't sure Woolman was going to come back, but we had the practice lines yesterday, and Woolman was slotted in on third pair. Yesterday, we were like,
they only had Bird on the graphic.
They didn't even put him on the graphic. It's like, I get that Bert's the money maker.
I don't know.
But like, poor Woolman, dude. He's like, I'm coming back too, dude. And I had freaking shoulder surgery. But they both
it's unfortunate that the addition of the two of them came at the expense of Soderblom to the IL. But that also seems to be, I don't want to speak for anything, and I don't know anything that the general public doesn't know, but I feel like that's maybe more precautionary than anything else. Like, because he was like day to day 2 days ago, and they're like, oh, he's just sore, like took a puck off the knee, we'll see. And then now it's like, we're just going to have him sit out for a little bit.
Well, consider this as well, is the Red Wings roster was sitting at one person shy prior to the activation of Bertuzzi and Woolman.
Right.
And by activating both of them, they would have been one over. So putting Soderblom on the IR then again frees up that roster spot. So I think you're on the right track. Still sucks though, as it's just like one step forward, two steps back in terms of like injuries all the time. It gets obnoxious.
Yeah. When was the last time the Redwoods line played together?
Right. Jesus.
Like, seriously, I feel like it's been 3 weeks since that line's actually been a line.
Remember when we were talking about line consistency and how nice it was? Whew, that flew out the window.
That got shot down right quick. Yeah.
But Husso was fantastic in this game. I thought that third goal, nothing on him, man. He couldn't see that thing.
No, that was a terrible turnover. That was a horrifically terrible and like, I didn't think Bert played a bad game. I thought Bert was pretty effective in doing his normal thing in front of the net. And like, Raymond had a game like that earlier this year where like he had a really solid game and then like, terrible turnover in the end to lose it. Like that just happened. So yes, obviously it was a horrible turnover, and I think he'd tell you the same thing. But I didn't think he played that poorly of a game for whatever that's worth.
No, and I mean, if you want to look at those advanced analytics that I like to tout so much, the best players on your team in tonight's game were the best players on your team. And that's, you want to see that. Lucas Raymond, Dylan going down in order by expected goals, 4% at 5-on-5. Lucas Raymond, Dylan Larkin, Tyler Bertuzzi, Ben Sherratt, Moritz Seider, all comfortably sitting above 50% expected goals for percentage. You go to Corsi, which is just not so expected goals for. I always explain it. Expected goals for is quality shot attempts for and against. Well, Corsi is just shot attempts, doesn't take into account like quality where they came from and stuff like that. They weren't all above 50%, but it's nice to see that the players that you need to play well came out and at least were the best players on your team. I won't necessarily say played well because you lost the Ducks 3-2 in overtime, but were the best players on your team. So you need more of that.
Yeah, it's a fine line where like you want your best players to obviously be your best players because that's where the money is. But you also depth is what makes winners as well. So It's kind of a yin yang. But back to your original point too. Yeah, like Husso I thought was great. I didn't think that any of this was really on his shoulders. I thought he played. Also just a gripe with the Ducks. Get some longer pegs for your goalposts, bro. So annoying all game for both sides too. Like both goalies were knocking the net out like over and over again. Get some longer pegs. You're an NHL franchise. Grow up. What are we doing?
I agree.
Husso, not to blame. Certainly for the third goal. I don't think for any, honestly. I mean, one was a power play, then the one in the third, or one in overtime. Yeah, I don't know. I thought he looked solid.
Let's put some respect on John Gibson's name, too. He played a great game. He really played well. Yeah, he balled out.
Which was needed because he's had a terrible year. So, like, I guess.
But we knew he was a good goalie. He's had a rough year, but he's a really good goaltender. So
he's a good goaltender. That defense, I've said it a million times over the last 48 hours, is atrocious. That's like the worst defensive unit I've laid my eyes on since the Red Wings in the spring. So yeah.
There you have it, guys. You got any final thoughts, man?
We still ball.
There you have it. Losers of 4 straight got a point in this one. Let's see if they can right the ship on Thursday as the Red Wings play the Sharks, another one of the worst teams in the NHL. Which
win comfortably, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. Get right game. Let's go. So we'll catch you guys tomorrow though with an off day episode. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.